Hi Nymfam and welcome to FPL 5 Things with Fergi. Well, what an international break it's been with some epic signings, mad transfers, lots of international break dilemmas going on. Let's get Fergi in and see if we can make some sense of all of this with our 5 things ahead of Game Week 4. Hi Fergi, what's occurring, buddy?
Hi, Nim, how are you doing? Yeah, a bit of a mental week or two it's been, haven't it? So looking forward to chatting it through. Crazy week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been mad. There's been so much going on and there's still so much going on. So, at the time of recording, all of this information was correct, but who knows, in an hour's time, it could be all up in the air again. But we'll start with our captaincy options here on 5 Things FPL. So the lot still up in the air, as we just said. Presses to come, but who do we think are the best captaincy shouts for Game Week 4 there, Fergie?
I think it's really, really hard to look past Cristiano Ronaldo this week, assuming he starts. I think he does start. So he trained yesterday for Man United, which was Tuesday. So he'll be well integrated in with the team. He scored a couple of goals for Portugal last week, played 96 minutes. I had concerns last time about his fitness, maybe because he hadn't played much for Juve, but it looks like he's fit and firing. So I think he's going to be a fantastic option in front of that Old Trafford crowd. I think, I really think that he'll be on penalties. As good as Bruno has been, Ronaldo is just the main man, and they're home to Newcastle, which, all that aside, Newcastle away from home haven't looked good. They're conceding lots of goals. So I think it's really, really hard to look past Ronaldo this week. Saying that, Salah, it's been doing okay. I do think when Jota plays, Salah tends to stay a bit more right than when Firmino plays, which could impact him, because I think we know that Firmino is going to be out of Game Week 4. I think Jota will play, and I do think actually that Jota does impact Salah in terms of points, and Leeds at home. Their defence towards the end of last season, it did improve massively at home. They're not very good away, but they are okay at home. So he's another option there. And the only other one is, how often does this happen that you're considering taking out a player and captaining him in the same week? But this is the case with Bruno Fernandes. Purely because he's the fall guy for Ronaldo, if you want Ronaldo in. But he himself, if he does stay on penalties, regardless, he scored a hat-trick in Game Week 1 with no penalties. But it's if you want Ronaldo, he's the fall guy. So I think Ronaldo is probably the best. He's going to be playing right in the centre. His shot map, all his stats point to, plenty of chances, plenty of shots against a weak defence. I can't look past him. Where's your head at in terms of captaincy name at the moment?
Yeah, so very much in the same boat. My captaincy is on Bruno currently, but I do not yet own Ronaldo. And as you said, I think Bruno is going to be my fall guy in order to afford Ronaldo. And therefore, I'm pretty sure my captaincy will then go on Ronaldo. Obviously, would like some confirmation on him starting from Ollie in the presses would be
lovely, wouldn't it?
Would be lovely. But I'm hearing that some of the ticket prices have gone through the roof. So I'm pretty sure that there'd be a lot of really upset people if Ronaldo doesn't start that match. Because I'm hearing excess of £1,000 for a ticket and stuff. So if you paid that and he just made a sub appearance, you'd be pretty upset about it, wouldn't you, really? So I'm expecting him to start, but getting that confirmation would be great. I think a little maverick pick out there for captaincy, whilst I don't think you should really be getting ready to go against the crowd for maverick picks, but I do think Antonio, with his 4 goals and 4 assists against Southampton, who have conceded 6 goals so far this season, could be a bit of a shout, to be honest. I mean, obviously, I don't expect him to be able to keep up that form every week, but you'd still imagine he'd be able to grab a little something against Southampton, wouldn't you, really?
I think so, yeah. And for those, because a lot of those who are getting Ronaldo in this week, a lot of people will have to take hits or wildcard because of his price and position he plays. He's not a straight swap for Bruno, because obviously Bruno's a midfielder, Ronaldo's a forward. So a lot of people, including me and maybe including you, having to take hits or wildcard to get him in. So those who just stick with Antonio, if Antonio gets a goal, or a goal and assist and gets, a 16 pointer or 20 odd pointer, they could have the last laugh. The kind of main reason why I'm pretty set on getting Ronaldo in, though, is if Ronaldo looks incredibly dangerous against Newcastle, which I expect him to be, then you're going to want him from game week 5 and 6 as well. I think they're away to West Ham in game week 5 and home to Aston Villa then game week 6. So he could even be a captain's shops in that match, and you don't want his price to kind of run away from you. So that's one of the main reasons. I'll still have Antonio, but yeah, I think Antonio's a pretty good option as well.
Yeah, so we touched a little there on the wild card, and if you were activating the wild card this week, would you go for an all-out attack team? So I've seen quite a few wild cards out there with the whole Lukaku and Ronaldo up front idea, and brings me back to the days when we used to be able to have Kane and Aguero up front, right. And it was all very exciting to have these, premium strikers up front. Would you go for it right now on a wild card, do you think?
I personally wouldn't, and it's because of the captaincy in game week 4. So you can only captain Ronaldo or Lukaku in game week 4.
Yeah.
Lukaku's home to Villa, and Ronaldo's home to Newcastle, but you're not going to probably captain either in game week 5 and in game week 6. Again, I think Lukaku's has got Man City in game week 6, so he's spending a lot of money on Lukaku, and you may not even captain until game week 7. So I thought about the wild card, and I think personally I'm going to wild card in game week 7 when Chelsea's fixtures massively improve and Lukaku's going to be a captaincy option every week. Obviously, the dilemma we're going to have then is, do we need Ronaldo as well as Lukaku? Yeah. But for me, it's the captaincy every week, which basically decides on what premiums I want to get in and when, because if you're spending 12.5 million on a player and barely captain the player, there's not much value for money, especially when you consider his players like Jota, Rafinha, Traore, Antonio, Calvert-Lewin, who are a lot less, who can deliver the same amount of points. So that's my thoughts on the double up. But again, it's very much team dependent, and there's no right answers in there. Would you be tempted on the double up?
Yeah, I have been a couple of times actually, for the exact reason that I was saying at the beginning. There's that whole nostalgia thing of being able to go with 2 premiums up top, and I really, if they're smashing it out of the park every week, regardless of whether they're captaincy options, it kind of feels like it'd be no different to having, say, Bruno in midfield or Salah in midfield with that person. But I do absolutely get your point on the captaincy. The thing that's kind of put me off is the balance and the weaknesses it leaves in the rest of the team, putting so much money up top. I can see a potential with it, though, that Antonio and Benrahma could potentially be sell guys when Europe kicks in to free up the funds. So then you could then invest more back into your midfield or into your defence if you're a little light there from, having Ronaldo and Lukaku. I really like it. And it's the only reason that would potentially push me to wildcarding right now, as my team pretty much looks like a lot of wildcard teams out there once I take my hit to get in Ronaldo as it is. So for me, if I was going to wildcard, yes, there are other areas in my team that I can fix and I can look ahead with a couple of more options, but I'm hoping by taking the small hit now, I can deal with those as the weeks go on, and maybe even just limp through to game week 7 if I need to, with my bench needing upgrading and hopefully not really needing to call on them too much. But at the moment, the only thing that would really push me, I think, to wildcard is going with that particular formation and being able to afford it right now, whereas there is a bit of a niggle in me that once we get to game week 7, if Ronaldo is smashing it out of the park every week and his price, is going up, and Lukaku's doing really well and he's ticking away and his price is going up, will I be able to afford that same formation by game week 7? So that's the only kind of, I guess, hesitation for me in wanting to do it now, but just for balance of my team, it doesn't feel like the right time just yet, as you say, because of Lukaku's fixtures and the captaincy option really, I guess, does sway it for me in the end on that one.
I think it's easy to forget as well, and everyone is guilty of this, is that we're only 3 games in, right? We're less than 10% through the season. There's no real massive need to make an uber aggressive move now and try and get the best team you can for the next 3 weeks, because after that game week 6, you're still not even a quarter of the way through the season. It's a long
feels like we've been going for ages already.
It does, and I just love the marathon. Analogy. Marathon is 26 miles. We're only we're less than a couple of miles in, and and already lots of people are thinking about, right, I'm going to make a break after 2 miles. It's like, out of 26 miles, you would never see marathon runners just do that, because there's no need. It's just stay with the pack, have a solid team, and make the moves at the right time. And I think it's a bit early, personally. If your team's a mess, I completely understand it. Just do it and sort it out, because you need to have fun as well.
Yeah.
But if your team is looking all right after a hit or two, I would say just do that personally.
Yeah. Fab stuff. Moving on to number 3 this week. Who is our player that if we owned this week, we'd ship out? Who are you thinking then? Who would you get rid of? Have you already got rid of somebody, maybe?
I have. I'm thinking of getting rid of a couple. So the first one, in terms of necessity, was I had to get rid of Tsimikas. Because
I did exactly the same move, actually.
Oh, did you? Purely because he was taking up that third Liverpool spot. And if Firmino was fit, I may have left him another week, but the fact that he's not going to be playing in game week 4, potentially not even playing in game week 5, Jota playing at the centre against Leeds and Crystal Palace is too much of a good thing for me to, not jump on. So that's why I took Tsimikas out. So I would say, I don't think you need to get rid of him. If you're kind of happy with your team, or maybe you've got Jota already, for example, I think is fine. And the other one is Danny Ings. I think is probably a person who's he's done really well, actually. For owners, including me and you, I think. So he's
2
done
goals
well,
and 1 assist already this season.
You can't argue, but he's done his job. His fixtures now turn, and they're pretty horrible. So their next few, they've got Chelsea, Everton, Man United, Spurs, Wolves, and Arsenal in their next few games.
It's spooked a lot of managers, hasn't it?
He has, and his underlying stats haven't been that great either. He's not on penalties. Fpl Gameweek, on the pitch, so obviously scored a wonderful overhead kick. It was absolutely brilliant. Yes. and he may score points, but I think from game week 4 onwards, there are better options in that bracket, namely Calvert-Lewin, Bamford, Antonio. We haven't mentioned Lukaku, Ronaldo, and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's better options. Anyone else name you think you're getting rid of? Or?
No, I'm pretty happy at the moment. Obviously, the 2 that you mentioned we've got very similar teams. I'm pretty much in exactly the same boat, to be honest. And it is quite tough selling Ings when he's just been taken away. But I think the fixtures have spooked people. And not only that, his price, that 8 million makes him an easy fall guy to up him to a Lukaku or Ronaldo rather than one of the cheaper forwards. So, absolutely on the same 2. The only other one I've kind of been on and off about, depending on news over international break, was Rafinha. Obviously, we're still waiting on some specific news on what's going on there. I don't want to sell him in terms of the fact that I'm worried about having him in my team or he's let me down or any of those things. It was just mainly because if he was going to miss out on game week 5 as well as game week 4, then I didn't really want to be relying on Ayling or Livramento every week as my kind of backup. So that's like one I'm keeping an eye on. But in terms of wanting to keep Rafinha, his fixtures are great coming up. His form has been, there with the underlying stats. So I'm not keen to get rid of him in any stretch of the imagination if we know he's going to be good for game week 5 and then potential for game week 4, he stays where he is. But that's the only other one in my particular team that I've been kind of thinking about as a potential jump on and jump off. But I think Ronaldo is more of a pressing issue right now.
I think the Leeds manager as well has intimated that when Dan James kind of integrates into the Leeds team, he'll take a spot on the right hand side and potentially push Rafinha into number, more kind of into the centre. And I think he's going to be a fantastic option over the coming weeks because Leeds fixtures are absolutely brilliant. So they have from game week 5, they have Newcastle, West Ham, Watford, Southampton, Wolves, Norwich. Couldn't ask for a better run. So I think he's a great option. As well as Bamford. So I think even if he does miss game week 4, Rafinha for me he's a definite hold. And I hope lots of managers take him out because I think he's going to do well from game week 5 onwards personally. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so discussed who we'd like to get rid of, but let's talk a little bit about who we'd like to get in. I know we've kind of touched upon that, but anyone ahead of game week 4 that we haven't really mentioned or that we could look into a little bit more for definitely getting into our teams?
Yeah, there's a few players which I would love to get in, and if I was wildcard, then I'd be getting them in. I really like the look of Calvert-Lewin. So if he's fit, he's got Burnley, but Everton's fixtures are fantastic. He's confirmed now on penalties as well, which has always been the thing with Calvert-Lewin, which I always like to have my forward, especially more expensive forwards to have penalties because as Salah proved last week, you don't have to play well to score a goal and get the points right. And Calvert-Lewin did that last week too. Another couple of players, I think we mentioned him last week in the video, which didn't quite make it, but Ferran Torres is definitely a player I am very, very interested in. City's fixtures are not the best for the next few. They're away to Leicester in game week 4. They are home to Southampton in game week 5, which could be a brilliant fixture for them. And they do have Chelsea and Liverpool after that as well. So over the 4 games, I think he's a brilliant option, and I think at his price point, 7.1, I think he is now. Even if he gets the odd benching, I think is fine because he'll more than make up for it in the fixtures he does play. And another player I really like, and it's very divided opinion. I seem to be the only person who actually likes him, but
interested now.
Adama Traore, just looks so dangerous. He hasn't returned yet, obviously, but looking at his expected points on off to start, he's only scored 6 points. But his expected points based on his performance is over 17, and that puts him ahead of Bruno Fernandes. Incredibly, this is how unfortunate or not clinical he's been. I really, really think that he's going to be a fantastic option moving forward, and he's definitely in my thoughts or a transfer in game week 5. So if Greenwood potentially looks like he may lose his spot, if Rafinha misses out in game week 5, if Firmino is back early and Jota loses his place, Traore is definitely a player I've got a mind on. And also, I think Jimenez as well, because Jimenez has had 3rd highest shots in the box in the first 3 game weeks. Only Antonio and I want to say Lukaku potentially have had more in the whole league. And again, no returns as yet, but the signs are there and the fixtures are there. So they're ones I'm interested in. How about you, Nick? Got any more?
Yeah, no, pretty much the same. Torres is one I'm kind of earmarking potentially for that Greenwood spot, but I could be tempted over to the Traore side listening to that now.
He looks so dangerous.
I said in my stream on Monday that if he could, he keeps ordering them pizzas and them burgers and all those sorts of things, but if he could finish his dinner, we'd all be ordering them takeaways along with him. But right now he's not finishing them, so once he gets finishing, we'll all be on top of that. That's for sure.
But then I think if you look at Bamford's last year, right? Bamford's ownership at the start of last year was very low because the kind of narrative and the stats point to the fact that he missed all the chances in the championship. But players improve, players develop, and Adama is going to get so many chances that he's going to score somehow soon, whether it's off his backside, or something, whatever it is. And his price is a really nice price that you can afford to take a bit of a risk. I mean, if you put him on and he doesn't do that well at 6 million, I mean, what are you expecting from from a player like that anyway. But their fixtures the next 8 or 9 games are fantastic, and he's right at the top of my watch list.
Yeah.
You know,
Awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. The only one I've been kind of considering if I was on a wild card that I would ideally want to get in ahead of the crowd is Christiansen. I really like
yeah,
the look of him. He is on my watch list. I think he may get a little rise or two in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, Chelsea's fixtures aren't great, but if I was wildcarding, I'd be kind of happy to get him
definitely.
in, knowing that those good fixtures were around the corner. So
Mm.
him, potentially Lukaku, just because I could still see him scoring regardless of whoever he's up against. Obviously, Ronaldo, we can't, not talk about this section and not mention him. Over 1 million transfers in already.
Incredible,
It's a good job
incredible.
that he's locked in price, really,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It is. You're right.
But I think they're kind of the main players, and we've pretty much covered them all there. And moving on to our final thing ahead of game week 4, and do we think it's okay to take a hit this week? We've touched upon taking one each ourselves this week, Fergie, but do you think this is actually an okay week to go ahead and take a hit?
I think it is. So I've been debating this all over the last fortnight around whether to just kind of leave my team, take the hit to get Ronaldo in, or to wild card.
Mhm.
And it's very, very rare. Well, I can't actually remember a time in the history of FPL where a player has come in midway through the season and just
Mm,
completely disrupted the whole game.
everything.
And it's
Throwing it
probably,
all up in the air.
it has, and it's probably fair to say that for the first time, maybe again in the history of FPL, that the best player in the world is playing in the
Mm,
Premier League, and their fixture is the best fixture you could probably actually wish for. If you could pick a fixture, maybe home to Norwich or
yeah.
home to Arsenal. Sorry, Nim, but home to Newcastle is
Thankfully, that's
it,
not happening.
no, but he's the best player in the world. He's fit as a fiddle. He's got an incredible fixture, and this is it's his price, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't get him in, even if you get away with it in game week 4, which I think you could, he could double rise, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you think, oh, I'll get him next week. I'll get him next week. 12, he could go 12.6, 12.7, 12.8. Where you can get the funds from? You're going to end up taking hits from to wildcard again afterwards.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you may as well do it now while he's got this incredible, incredible fixture. So that's my thought. And another thought I've had, because I've been kind of fighting with myself on this -4 and -8, and maybe even beyond for -8 this week against using a wild card, is that 8 points over a season to me is probably not going to define where you finish. If you're thinking top 1K, top 10K, top 100K, 8 points towards the end of the season is only going to see you fall, roughly, a few percent
Mm,
kind of either way of that. Your overall ranking, 8 points, is not going to be massively affected at the end of the season with 8 points. However, an unnecessarily used wild card could potentially define your season.
mm.
If we used it now and everything changes in 3 or 4 weeks, and everyone's on triple Chelsea and loads of Man City, and Arsenal turn a corner, Wolves suddenly smash it, Liverpool have a massive slump, United have a massive slump, or wherever it is,
Mm.
wildcarders later on have got a massive, massive advantage, whereas everyone will be stuck on the players that are good now after 3 game weeks. So I think with that in mind, I think that is what has persuaded me now that taking hits now, to me, is probably worth it to get your team into a position you want it to be in, because
Yeah.
there's nothing worse either. And we've all been here in planning in transfers the next
Mhm.
week after week after week after week after. But obviously we only know now what we know now. After game week 4, 5, or 6,
Mm.
there will be other opportunities, there will be other players, there will be other superstars, there'll be other bargains.
Potential injuries, anything could happen,
Exactly. So to answer the question in a very long-winded way, I think taking a hit this week, quite early in the season, to sort your team out and get you through to a wild card later on, with this whole Ronaldo mania thing, is worth it.
Yeah.
What about you, Nim? Will you be taking hits, do you think?
Yeah, well, you know me, I'm not adverse to hit
Not averse
taking
to a hit.
anyway. I love
Yeah.
a bit of back chisel me, any chance to take some hits and I'm all over it. So, this excuse of getting Ronaldo in, yeah, let's do it,
Absolutely.
Love it. Let's go for it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I don't think people should look at hits as negatively as they do. There have been many a times where I've taken a hit and it hasn't worked out and it sucks. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not the best feeling in the world. However, you always have to look at that hit long term. And
Exactly.
right now, I'm hoping the hits I'm taking are at least going to last me a couple of game weeks. So when you think of it like that, you're not really taking a -4. At least you're taking a -2, hopefully, in terms of the player actually playing and getting their 2 points for doing that. So already you've halved that. And then if they then go on to do something, which is ideally what you're hoping for, then, you've kind of given yourself the opportunity to get more points and to cover the hit that you've taken now. That's how I see it. I have actually gone from being 80 points behind in a mini league in the last 12 game weeks, I think it was, of the season, to actually winning my mini league by taking hits. Because the only way I could get players in that were doing well for the players above me, but also some of the differential players that were going to help me pull back the points, was by taking hits. Otherwise, I could never have got them into my team and I just would have carried on, where I was. So I'm definitely not negative against them. I know that a lot of very good seasoned pros will tell you in order to get really good ranks, the less hits you take, the better. And that is fair. But sometimes you're not always dealt the best hand, and sometimes your team isn't exactly set up as you need to. And the only way you can sort that out is you have two options: you wildcard or you take a hit. And sometimes a wildcard just isn't the right situation. Like, it hasn't felt like the right situation for me all international break.
No.
And I'm trying to listen to my gut on that. I hate using the -8. I'm completely with you. Would have loved to have just done what I needed to do with the -4, but I really wanted Jota. So the only way I could do that was to get rid of Simicast to free up that spot. And so it's kind of led me into this path of a -8. Now, if I was getting strong-armed into a -12 territory, Rafinha's out for longer than he needs to be, etc., 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 then obviously I'll hit the wild card. But for now, I feel like there are going to be quite a few of us taking hit. Of course, we do have to remember that Twitter is a bubble, and that whilst it seems like everyone's either wildcarding or hitting on Twitter, that won't necessarily be the case in the wider community of FPL players. But it does feel like the right sort of time to take the hit and set myself up going forward.
Yeah, I think you have to take ownership of your own team. You're up against millions of, faceless sort of teams. I'm not competing against you. You're not competing against 1,000 people on Twitter.
Yeah.
We're competing against millions of people. But it's just, and it goes back, I think, to what we said, I think, in our first ever episode as well. It's like, if you look at the first 3 game weeks, so even though I had a red arrow last week, if you just said that I'd be at 150k after 3 game weeks, I've been over the moon. And I think that's how we need to look at it now, from game week 4 to maybe game week 6 or 7, in terms of, if we take a -8, we can probably expect a red arrow maybe this week, but looking forward then to that whole period of 4, 5, 6 and 7, if we can get to game week 7, still be in the top 250,000 and a fresh wildcard played at game week 7, just as an example. Again, if you just said that at the start of the season, you would have probably been like, I'll snap your hand off. So
I'll take it.
and
Where can I sign up?
exactly that. And I also think that, again, it was one of the things we spoke about, I think, in our first ever episode, right? So if we take a -8 for Ronaldo and take out Bruno, and Ronaldo blanks and Bruno scores a couple of goals, is probably, our worst nightmare, right? However, you just have to hark back to our thinking at this time, and we feel it's the right thing to actually do, and just go, say la vie. It's just the game. It's what it is. You can't control it. We're trying to predict the future. So, it's just impossible. And, and just move on next week. And just hope that the rank fall, isn't too
Be
severe.
kind to
But
us.
I think the fact we've had a decent start,
Yeah.
I think if we were ranked at 3 or 4 million and taking a -8, I think it does affect your judgment and decision making. Whereas, I think, the fact that the worst thing that could probably happen, is if we have an absolute nightmare and we go down to 500,000. Well, we're still in the top 400 or 500k with Ronaldo in our team, with a really good team moving forward. So I think that whole mindset thing is quite important.
Yeah, you couldn't have put it better, really. I think that sums it up beautiful. So
Superb.
with that, we'll wrap it up there, guys. That's our 5 things for Game Week 4. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. We love to hear from you. You can also find a link to Fergie's Twitter page in the description below. If you've enjoyed the video, then please do like, share and subscribe. So it's a goodbye from me for now and a goodbye from Fergie.
Best of luck, everyone. Hope you all smash Game Week 4.
Until next time, Fergie times Nymfria out.